being presented by a very good friend of NMA's, Lisa Bryan. Lisa is founder and chief appreciation strategist for Grategy LLC. She founded it in 2009. And Lisa works with a variety of manufacturing, distribution, and construction organizations that want to attract stronger talent and keep people for the duration. She's also Leadership Development Director for Leadership USA Incorporated in her hometown of Cleveland, a membership organization that offers high-quality executive education for leaders of its member companies. And it's facilitated via live streaming learning events with world-class instructors. She has an associate's degree in marketing from Cuyahoga Community College, has both a BS and a BA in business administration and marketing from Cleveland State University. And then she went on to get her MBA in marketing from Cleveland. She's a member of SHRM, and she is DISC certified for you HR people who know exactly what that means. Prior to public speaking, we had a broad background in business and industry, which is a plus and shows up in her presentations. Two things: we are recording today's session, and it will be available via the NMA website first of the week. And then we want to remind you, if you have a speaker or an open mic, to please close it so that we don't have background noise issues. Sometimes people forget that they have their microphone on, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen this afternoon. So, without further ado, I'd like to turn the mic over to our facilitator, Lisa Bryan. Lisa, take it away.
All right, well, here I am back on video again for a moment for at least the introduction. Thanks for coming in this afternoon. Just so you know, there is a chat box. So if there's any questions that you have throughout our time together, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I'm happy to answer anything that I see or issues that you want to make sure that I take care of while we're in our time together. So we're going to be talking about ways to ramp up your engagement. How do you keep your top talent from becoming someone else's? Well, in the next hour, you'll have all kinds of tools and ideas that you can start using immediately to make that happen. So I will see you personally again at the end of the seminar. So when it comes to ramping up your engagement, every moment counts. We never want to underestimate the power of that single moment, whether it be a moment of thank you, of appreciation, of a kindness. You have no idea what that person was just going through 10 minutes before they came into your life. And that goes on the home front as well as in your personal or as well as in your professional lives. This is all about human connection. It really is both business and personal, because in order for our businesses to survive and thrive, we really need to create those moments that connect us as human beings. So when we're looking for those moments throughout the day, some of the ones we create, well, they elevate our relationships with others and others don't. So every time a word comes out of our mouth, something that we're going to say with our outside voice, like you don't want to get into the, did I really say that out loud type of thing, of just being really conscious of making those connections with other people. Because when you pay attention to yourself first, what it helps us to do is to create that workplace environment where people want to stay. It takes us off of that hamster wheel of continuously hiring, because you're spending so much time, so much effort, so much money to bring employees in. And if you're not treating them right off the bat, they will be out the door and the process will start all over again. And right now, even though we have basically full employment, there is one group of people that is facing twice the unemployment rate as the regular population. And that is the millennial group, where regular unemployment rates are 4%. Millennials have over 8%. So you might be thinking, well, Lisa, why is it so hard for me to find people when I have millions of unemployed millennials looking for work? Because the conversation has changed. Business has changed, and the way your newest employees are coming into the workplace is also different. If you're not willing to make the changes to update your business, to update your way of thinking, then you're not going to attract the most talented, educated generation that has come into the workplace. I know I was doing a program last year on my generations in the workplace, mastering the millennial mindset and beyond. And I was talking about the changes in business. And one older woman raised her hand and she's like, well, how do we get the millennials to do what we, to do business like we do? And I said, well, give me an example. And she said, well, we work from 8 to 5 and we expect them to come in. I said, why? Well, that's where we have our meetings and that's where we get together and stuff. I said, yeah, but why? You have Zoom, like we're on now. You have webinars, you have telephone. Why do they have to be in the office? Well, And what she didn't want to say in front of a room full of people is so that we can keep our eye on you and make sure that you're actually working, because that was always the thought process. If I can't see you, you're not working. And it was almost, we were giving this woman suggestions, and it was almost like the words were bouncing off of her forehead, but none of them were going in. And finally, it just came down to it to say, if you are unwilling to look at business, every aspect of business today differently than you have in the past, your business will fail. So in our time together, look for some strategies that you can use specifically in your workplace that you're going to implement over time. This is an overnight change that will help you to relate to people no matter what age they are, no matter what they have going for them, no matter how they're wired, because it really is all about human connection. When it comes to non-traditional career paths, for the last 2 generations, parents have really been harping on their kids about going to college, becoming college materials. They weren't necessarily focused on trade schools or going directly into the skilled trades or any type of non-traditional workplace. We need to start changing the conversation, because it's all about filling the jobs that we have with qualified, interested, passionate people that we can find at all spectrums of the employment loop. So you might be saying, okay, well, how does all this apply to me? I mean, I have a pretty good workplace. People are relatively happy. A lot of what we're going to talk about, reminders of things that you may be doing, but maybe you got away from it, because business is so good right now that we're focused on just taking care of the clients and we totally forget about our employees. Or you're saying, well, this stuff doesn't work. I mean, why should I be thanking my employees for doing their job? Isn't that what a paycheck's for? And on either end of that scale, we can find ideas, find strategies, and solutions for today's employee, today's marketplace. Time together, here's a few of the things we're going to talk about. First of all, how to sincerely acknowledge your employees. If you walk out of this webinar saying, you know what, that Lisa Ryan woman told me I need to thank 5 people today. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Was that 5, right? You're right. It's not going to work. It's sincere. It's catching your employees doing things well instead of always beating them up for the things that they're not doing well. We want to focus on the good. We want to focus on that positive feedback, knowing that we have to have difficult conversations from time to time. But when we err on the side of positivity, that's what impacts and helps our workplace. You want to build your reputation as a great place to work. Because back in the day, if you didn't like your job, you told your friend, and they might tell 3 or 4 other people, maybe 20 people. Now you can post something on a website like Glassdoor that millions of people will see that your company is or is not a great place to work. So you want to utilize the social media and the technology that's available instead of being afraid of it, because we wanted to bring new people into the workplace that are also excited to work with us. Addressing the hidden killer of productivity and profits, that is really ignoring the niceties, ignoring that human connection that we have, and getting off that hamster wheel of continuous cycle, that hiring cycle. You know, there's an aspect of hiring more slowly and firing more quickly. When we take the time to bring the right people on board, that makes a difference. And when we discover early on that an employee is not a good fit for our organization, looking for ways to help them to whatever their next is will also help your company culture to remain positive. And we'll spend just a little bit of time talking about the different generations in the workplace, because again, people think differently about business based on the year that they were born. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. I'm going to spend some time talking about gratitude strategies or strategies throughout this process. And you might think, oh, that's just soft skills, that's fluffy, there's nothing to it. Nothing that we're talking about today is soft or fluffy. When we talk about employee engagement and its impact in the workplace, here's some of the numbers. You're going to have 50% fewer accidents, 41% fewer quality defects, 30% lower healthcare costs because your employees are going to have less stress and will probably be taking care of themselves better. You're going to get 22% more productivity and 140% higher corporate earnings. Now, this is a small percentage of the numbers that are out there that justify employee engagement. And we are not talking about spending tens of thousands of dollars on some new employee engagement program or anything like that. These are things that can cost little to no money that you can do on a daily basis to create that corporate culture that rocks. So when employees were interviewed and prospective employees were interviewed as far as what they were looking for in a job, in the workplace, these are the top 5 that kept coming up over and over again. Now, mind you, every list is a little bit different, but I merged them together, kind of adapted them to the ones that, again, kept showing up. So the number 1 on almost every list was company culture and mission. People have to feel good when they walk in the door. They have to feel important. They have to feel that connection, like they're making a difference to a mission that is greater than themselves. And it's up to you and your leadership team to promote that mission, to promote that culture, to connect with the people that are working for you. Approachable leadership. Back in the day, there was a lot of hierarchy in corporate America where you didn't want to go in over anybody's head, or you had to follow that chain of command. Nobody talked to the president. I remember one of my first jobs, we had a company picnic, hot dogs in the parking lot, and the founder of the company happened to be making the rounds. His name was Mort. And I went up to Mort and I introduced myself to him and said hello and thanked him for having me on board and for the picnic, whatever. I got back to the office that afternoon and it was the talk of the office. I can't believe that you went up and talked to Mort. I can't believe that he talked to you. It's ridiculous. We need to have leadership that people can talk to on a peer level that is open and willing to listen to ideas that employees want to contribute. They want the opportunity to grow, to be better tomorrow than they are today. The flexibility for work-life integration, because we don't have work-life balance anymore. But the time is the greatest gift that we can give to someone. Now, I know if you have a manufacturing plant, people have to be on the line. They cannot be running the equipment from home. If you're working in a retail store, yes, people have to show up to wait on the customers. And there's probably some level of flexibility that you can implement. Maybe giving workers the opportunity to come to work at 6:30 or at 7 a.m. Now, you know that they're going to come to work at 7 o'clock anyway, but just having that little bit of choice in the matter can make a huge difference. And of course, recognition. People want to be acknowledged for the good work that they do. So you might be saying, okay, well, who is this Lisa Ryan woman, and why does she go around the country and the world talking about gratitude strategies through the course of company culture, employee engagement, and employee retention? I am actually born and raised Cleveland, Ohio, have never lived outside of Cuyahoga County, and that is totally by choice because I am Cleveland through and through. In my career, I started as a headhunter. I sold people. I'm actually one of the few people on the planet that can say they sold their mother. Now, mind you, mother hated that job, but I told her that she had to stay there at least 90 days because I had a guarantee and couldn't afford to give back the commission. Thankfully, mother was there for 2.5 years, so it was all good. From there, I spent 13 years in industrial sales, including 7 years in the welding industry. And yes, I do weld. I have the burns to prove it. And then the last 7 years of my career, I spent in healthcare. Everything changed for me in 2009 when I had the opportunity to do a firewalk. Now, the sad part is that firewalk in 2009 was not my first one. I actually did my first one in 1989 when I was 6, just in case you're doing the math. The first one was great, but it was the second one that was life-changing. Because when you walk on fire, you are pretty jacked up. You might actually say that you are fired up. But my friends and I knew that unless we took action, that life was going to go back to exactly the way it was, and we didn't want that to happen again. So we opened up a Facebook thread, and every day we shared people we met, experiences we had, things we learned. And one of my friends said, well, why don't we write down 3 things that we're grateful for? Okay, did that every day, held each other accountable. And that's the practice that changed everything. I was in medical sales at the time, and customers I hadn't talked to for months were calling me, hey, can you come in and sell me some stuff? I will be right there. There were 2 large facilities I'd been calling on for almost 5 years that closed effortlessly. I noticed the difference from my husband, who was expressing more verbal appreciation. It certainly wasn't because I was keeping the kitchen any cleaner. All of these things that were changing, but the only thing I had changed was this practice of gratitude. So really, that's where the research began. And I've read thousands of white papers and reports and books and attended programs to see, is gratitude more than this feel-good emotion that we normally associate with it? And I found out that there was. One of the first books that I read was by Dr. Robert Emmons. He's a PhD at Berkeley. And he took a random group of students, divided them into 3, had the first group write down the things they were grateful for, the second group all the troubles, hassles, all the things that bugged them, and the third group simply recorded the day's events. They were the control group. After 10 weeks, the gratitude group was 25% happier. Now you might be saying, Lisa, how do you know they were actually 25% happier? Well, because when Dr. Emmons presented his findings, he presented them in a pie chart, and pie makes everyone happy. Now, actually, for about 10 weeks before the survey, he had people keep journals as far as headaches and backaches and stress levels and relationships, because he wanted to be able to separate the chronically happy people from, let's call them, the chronically crabby people, and he saw the 25% increase. That gratitude group actually exercised on average an hour and a half more per week than the other 2 groups. They had fewer physical ailments. And when you look at the research that has to do with autoimmune diseases, neuromuscular diseases, people with a regular practice of gratitude fare better. They complained less often. Wouldn't that be nice? They were more happy, joyful, enthusiastic. And then Dr. Emmons interviewed people associated with the gratitude group to see if they noticed any difference, and they did. He found that they were more emotionally available. They were nicer to be around. So I did my own research, basically posted a question on social media, on LinkedIn. And the question was, how do you incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business? Now, you would think that that's an innocent question. And this was BT, before trolls, when you could actually post a question and get a respectable answer. So how do you incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business? I'm thinking vanilla question, I should get some vanilla answers. And that wasn't quite the case. The very first response I got was written in all caps. So in my mind, I was hearing, you don't need to incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business because people will just take advantage of you anyway. Honestly, I had no idea what to do with that. I called my best friend. She's like, I don't know what you do. It's not like you can do anger management counseling online. Well, at that point anyway. So I emailed her back. I said, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. She wrote me back again, all caps. That's okay. Big girl now. Moving on. It's like, oh, righty then. I am a glutton for punishment and I want to go to the end of the story. So I emailed her one more time and I said, this might sound rather silly, but if you would take my 30-day gratitude challenge and for the next 30 days, simply write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for and let me know how it goes. She emailed me back and she's like, thank you so much for being so positive. I'll do that right away. I'm thinking, who are you and what did you do with Grouchy Girl? But sure enough, we stayed in contact over the course of the next month. A month goes by and I asked her, I said, so how's things going? She said, it's kind of weird. She said, I haven't been feeling that much difference, but when I went on vacation and I was around my friends and family, they noticed the difference. It makes no difference if you believe any of this will work. If you will implement one thing from here, one kind of gratitude practice, one strategy to work on yourself, you may not notice the difference, but other people will. And it comes down to 2 words. And these are 2 words that you've been hearing since you were a little kid when it comes to expressing appreciation. And those 2 words, of course, would be thank you. Thank you. Mother Teresa said we're more starved for appreciation than we are for bread. And when you say the words thank you, the only acceptable response are the words you're welcome. Think about all the other responses that you hear instead. No problem, no worries, it was nothing, yep, just doing my job. When somebody says thank you, they are giving you a gift. And when you say it was nothing, you are taking that gift and you're rejecting it. What we need to do is complete the cycle of appreciation. Now you might be saying, Lisa, it's not a big deal. I mean, when I say no problem or no worries, it's really not. What's the big deal? The big deal is your brain does not process small words. So if you say no problem, my brain is saying problem, there's a problem. What do you mean there's a problem? If you say no worries, my brain's saying worries. What should I be worried about? When you say you're welcome or my pleasure, the brain reacts differently. Now, some people will say, you know, Lisa, I really don't like to say my pleasure because every time I do, it feels like I'm at Chick-fil-A, which, by the way, that is a registered trademark if you have a Chick-fil-A in your neighborhood. You will say thank you and they will say my pleasure. How do I know this? Because I tweeted about it and the cow actually tweeted me back. So as you can see from the photos, me and the cow are really tight. But it really comes down to something that costs you no additional time, no additional money. All we're doing is we're completing the cycle of appreciation. Somebody says thank you from now until the end of time. You will respond with you are welcome or my pleasure. Makes a difference, I promise you. Because when it comes to the power of gratitude, it's not just a good idea, it's essential to life. So we spent the first part of this program talking about you because it really is all about you and that's where we need to start. But now that you in practice of looking good, and you have a gratitude journal, you have some kind of practice and you're getting into this, how do we bring it into the workplace? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the difference between satisfaction and engagement. When employees are satisfied, it's functional. Okay, job okay, he's okay, boss is fine. But when employees are engaged, it's an emotional connection. So an employee, they leave work, they don't even think about it. When an employee is engaged, they can't stop talking about it. Their friends and family wish they would just shut up about their job because they're tired of hearing about how excited this employee is. That's the emotional connection that we're looking for. Look at these people. There's inadequate communication. We as managers think that, oh, we're communicating all the time. We communicate fine. I told them twice. Well, the thing is that maybe that person didn't hear you, or they weren't paying attention, or they prefer an email, or they prefer you to pick up the phone, or they prefer a text. We need to communicate with people in a variety of ways, and more specifically in the way that they need to be communicated with. Employees that feel a lack of growth or advancement. And it doesn't have to be climbing the corporate ladder. A lot of times it's looking for what they're doing well, what lights them up, and helping them to do more of that. Because when employees are feeling devalued or unrecognized, or they don't feel that they have enough work-life options that they want to take advantage of, they're not getting the coaching, they're not getting the feedback they're looking for, they're feeling disempowered, they feel like they have to jump through a gazillion hoops to get anything done, they're going to take their skills somewhere else. Those are the main reasons employees are leaving. Maybe you've left a job for similar things. So when it comes to employee engagement, the Gallup Organization has found that about 30% of employees are actively engaged. What does that mean? These are your rock stars. These are the people that have that best friend at work. They're committed to the company. They have a good attitude. They are profitable. You are actually paying them less money than the value they are bringing to your organization. About 50% of employees are moderately engaged. Okay, they're satisfied, but there's an even cost benefit. You're basically paying them exactly for the work that they're doing. But the actively disengaged employee, which is about 20% of the population, they are your problem children. They don't feel they have the resources. They're not tied to the company. They don't have any friends there. They don't know what's expected with them. They have a horrible attitude, and they're expensive. As you can see, they're costing your company $3,400 for every $10,000 in salary. When somebody is no longer a good fit for your organization and those problem children start causing people to leave, think about who leaves. Is it your best employees or your worst employees? It's your best employees. You've probably been at an organization that horrible toxic person finally left, and it's like, la, everything opens up and there's a positive vibe that's back. We can't prolong removing people, or nicer, helping them find their next when they are costing us that type of money, as well as those employees who are leaving. So let's go through the thanks process. The thanks process will give you the 6 steps that you need to create that culture of appreciation in the workplace. And it really begins with that foundation. Without trust, there's nothing. Stop chasing BSOs. What are BSOs, Lisa? Bright, shiny objects. It happens all the time. You go to a webinar, you go to a conference, you take a class, and you come back with a gazillion ideas. Oh, these are great. All of this is going to work. I can't wait to implement them. And your employees are saying, oh no, you just got back from another conference. More books for the bonfire. Let's just ignore them for about 2 weeks so things will go back to normal, because that's pretty much what it normally takes when you are inconsistent. Squirrel. During our time together, you'll be taking lots of notes, I hope, and writing down lots of ideas. Look for one. At the end of the program, when you go by and you are ranking what's going to work best for you and make the biggest difference in your organization, pick one and implement it and be with it for the long term. Just don't give it 2 weeks. Well, that didn't work. and go back to life as normal, because then we're not building trust. After this program, you may go back to your employees and even start with an apology approach. The apology approach looks like, you know what, guys, I have not been letting you know how much I appreciate you. I'm going to make more of an effort to do that. Or, we're going to be making some changes here. I know we've kind of felt like flavor of the week in the past. Here's what we're going to do. We'd love your input on it. We'd love to see how you're feeling about it. Because instead of just coming back and slamming people with all your new ideas, share ideas with them, get feedback, and modify them so that it works for your organization, because every culture is different. And for some of you more than others, it's really taking a look at modernizing your brand. What's your story? What's the story on the street? Again, back in the day, you didn't like your job. You told a couple people, it didn't have a long-term effect on your business. Now somebody posts, a disgruntled employee posts a bad review on a website like Glassdoor.com, and employees who are thinking about joining your organization may never even send in their resume because what they've heard. So when it comes to modernizing your brand, one of the best ways to do that is through the use of video. I came across this statistic online, so obviously you know it's true. But here's just on YouTube, there is 500 hours of content being uploaded every single minute. That's 1 billion hours of content every single day, which basically means that you can start watching YouTube videos on the day you're born. And when you retire at age 65, you will pretty much be finishing up the videos for one day. Do you think that if your potential employees are looking to join your organization, they may be looking you up online? And when they do, what do they see? Do they see a corporate mumbo jumbo of people in their ivory towers talking about, in corporate speak, about the company? Or are they seeing something real? Are they seeing something that makes them want to join your organization? And it doesn't have to be like, back in the day. I remember when I first started dating my husband, I honestly thought that was an appendage attached to his shoulder because he never went anywhere without it. No. In today's world, we all carry videos with us. It doesn't have to be this big blockbuster. And actually, the more real it is, the more effective it is. You have your smartphone. It has video capabilities. Look for ways to bring some of that, to make it real for other people, and to let your employees share. Here are just a few of the ideas that I've picked up at the different conferences that I've spoken at across the country. The video handshake. What about having a 60-second video sharing a little bit about you and your employee signature, so new employees coming on board can learn about the people they're going to be working with? Favorite things, little things you like to do, little things about you personally, whatever you want to share. It's called the video handshake. One of my clients uses something I call Friday Strong, where they have different departments do a short video on Fridays to share things that have gone well in their departments. Some of them go all out and make it some kind of blockbuster production, and others, just share. There's no rules with it except keeping it rated G, of course. But, let your employees have the flexibility to have some fun. You may take them around the office or around the plant, kind of doing one of those speed up little day in the life videos to show them what it's like working for your organization. I was talking to one audience member one time, and they said, "Oh, Lisa, if we did a day in the life and we actually showed candidates what they would be with when they'd never join us." Like, well, that's a problem. Again, hire more slowly, fire more quickly, but find ways that you can use video, because that really helps you to build that level of trust. The second step is the H. How do you help your employees to be better tomorrow than they are today? you doing to invest in personal and professional development? Now, I was speaking at a state conference, and I asked the question, you know, how do you invest in your employees? And one woman raised her hand and she said, you know, we give every employee $1,500 a year to invest in whatever type of personal or professional development they want. You could almost see the heads of the accounting managers exploding as they were doing the math. Goodness, we have 500 employees. We don't have that kind of money lying around. So I asked her, I said, what percentage of your employees actually take you up on that? And she said, drum roll please, 3 to 5%. 3 to 5%. You're offering a benefit to everybody, and only a small percentage ever take advantage of it. We also want to change the conversation when it comes to training, because believe me, I've done my share of public seminars. And a lot of times the people are in the room are what we lovingly refer to in the training world as hostages, because they were sentenced to be there. There's something wrong with you. You're broke. You're going to training. What if instead you change the conversation to say, I would like to invest in you. I found this program. I think it would be terrific for you. I'd like to invest in the day to send you. Now that employee feels valued instead of feeling punished. And those 3 to 5% that take you up on it, they are your future leaders. They're like the marshmallows rising to the top of your hot cocoa. Those are the ones to watch. How do we do it? We offer all kinds of opportunities to grow, from lunch and learns to having a learning library, making resources available, and teaching people how to use those resources, because many of them may not have even picked up a book since high school or college. Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a public speaking club for people who want to get better in their public speaking skills. So you can go to toastmasters.org and check that out. Ongoing training in-house. You could bring in a trainer. And yes, that is a shameless plug, because that's one of the things that I do, but there's lots of us and I am not right for everybody. The thing with bringing in a trainer from the outside is I can come in and share the exact same information that you are sharing with your people, and they will hear it differently from me because they don't see me every day. Sending your people to public seminars so they can network and meet people and make connections, and also trade shows so they can see what's going on in the industry, see what the competition is doing, meet the clients. That way, and plus it's kind of cool to go out of town to go to a trade show. So you're investing in your people to help them to be better tomorrow than they are today. The third step is my favorite, of course. It's the AAA, to acknowledge, applaud, and appreciate. There's one study done by the WorkHuman Research Institute. From the respondents that they had, 21% of them said that they have never been recognized at work. That is unacceptable. 33% haven't been recognized for 6 months. And then we wonder why people leave our organizations to go somewhere else where they feel valued. What gets recognized gets results. So if you walk away from this webinar saying, oh, that Lisa Ryan woman told me I need to thank 5 people today. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Was that 5? Check. You're right. It's not going to work. We need to sincerely look at what our employees are doing well and acknowledge them specifically. Marcial Losada did a study where he looked at high-performing teams. And what he found on a high-performing team is there was a 6-to-1 positivity ratio in their conversations. What that means is for every 1 negative thing the people on this team would hear, they would hear 6 positive remarks. Now, the remarks weren't always all, yay, everything you do is so great. It was respectful communication. You know, that's a really good start of an idea. How can we build on that? On an average performing team, that number dropped in half. There was 3 positives for every 1 negative. And at that, you are barely surviving. Your employees are rowing the boat just quickly enough to keep it from sinking. but on a low performing team, it's 0.3 to 1. 0.3. There's a decimal in front of it. They're hearing 3 times more negative than they are positives. This is like being in bumper to bumper traffic. You know, for every one person who smiles and waves and lets you in, there are 3 people beeping on the horn and screaming obscenities. Is that what you want your workplace culture to feel like? We need to sincerely recognize people, because now that's how we get to this 30% engagement that Gallup is talking about. And unfortunately, that number has not changed since the early 2000s when Gallup first started keeping track. There are some companies that are way high on the engagement scale, 70, 80, 95%, but there's also a lot of companies that are way down. They have a leader that used to do anything. But unfortunately, on that average, still about 30%. 50% are doing enough work so that they don't get fired. And then we have bottom 20%, the actively disengaged, those poisonous, toxic, horrible people who hopefully don't work for you anymore. But when we think about it, who gets the attention? You have your 2 groups of people at the opposite ends. You have rock stars, hey, children beating up on all the time. But a whole group of people who are absolutely ignored, and I like to call them the steady eddies. They're the people that they show up, they may not be rock stars, they may not be problem children, but they do their job. What, as your eddies manager, you went up and you said to them, you know, I really appreciate that you're here all the time. I can count on you. Thank you for being so dependable and loyal. You may be the first manager in Eddie's whole career that gave them that positive feedback. And now you're giving that person the tools they need to move into a rock star. Because think about where the problem children get their recruits from. It's that same pool of 50%. Those are the people with whom you can make a difference. The N is to navigate that work-life integration. We spend more time at work and with the people that we work with than we do at home and with those we love. So how do we bring more fun into the workplace? How do we build those relationships that those friendships happen? And yet we still get the job done. It doesn't have to be happy, happy, joy, joy all the time. Goodness knows they call it work for a reason. But while we're there, we want to be able to build those relationships and nurture those relationships. I know my husband at his company, every year they have a company picnic at Cedar Point. I'm in Northeast Ohio, roller coaster capital of the world. Scott's been there for 10 years now, and I've seen his kids, his employees' kids, his colleagues' kids grow up. They know each other. They love each other. It's a big, happy family, and it makes it a lot tougher for people to leave when they have that relationship at work. We look for it in all kinds of ways. I was speaking at a flooring conference, and one of the gentlemen there, he was a stonemason, and at their company picnic, they actually had a stone building contest for the kids there. So think about that. Not only was it fun, not only was it interactive with the kids, but they were being exposed to the industry as far as what mom or dad were doing and potentially developing a love for that industry at a very early age. So we look for ways to connect with our employees and to connect with their families to make it more difficult for them to leave. We get to know our employees. There is no one size fits all. I had one of my clients, it was for an engineering firm, and she said, well, Engineers Week is coming up. What's the one thing that we can do for all of our engineers to recognize them? I'm like, nothing. There is not one single thing that would make everybody there happy. What is it that they enjoy personally? How are they wired? One of the things that I took from an attendee at one of the seminars I was facilitating was the All About Me sheet. And this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you ask them about their hobbies, their sports teams, their favorite gift cards, their favorite candy bar, whatever it is, so that you can personally recognize that person in the moment with something that they like and appreciate. They are not going to remember the fact that they filled out their form 6 months ago and wrote down that their favorite candy bar was a Heath bar, like mine is. If somebody gave me a Reese cup, that's cool. I love Reese cups. They're great candy bars. But if somebody gives me a Heath bar, now I know they're paying attention to me, okay? Your employees want to do the same. And again, it doesn't have to cost lots of money to do that. When we look at the generations in the workplace, right now there's 5 different generations, and there's a huge difference as far as how we look at business based on not only the year we were born, but also what we're exposed to. So we make a lot of generalizations about each of these generations in the workplace. Know, again, that everybody's an individual, everybody's different, but there is some really great education out there that can show you the difference between things like family structure and influence. We look at the family structure from back in the traditionalist day, where it was dad was working, mom was staying at home raising the kids, to all of the different structures that we have today. Education, there's much more of a focus on education in the millennials, but now Gen Z, who is the up and coming, are saying, well, I'm seeing all these people with all this college debt and not doing anything with it. Maybe I'll go non-traditional. Maybe I'll go to a trade school. So we're looking at education differently. We have different leadership styles we prefer. Feedback, that is huge, because our younger generations, your newer employees that are coming into the workplace, they've been getting feedback their entire life. They need to hear it from you, not just once a year at their personal performance review. Number one, nobody likes the personal performance review. Managers hate giving them. People hate hearing about them once a year. Giving feedback more often and shorter feedback in the moment works. So the final step is to serve a greater mission, looking at how you and your organization makes a difference. Giving time off for volunteer work, for example, or showing how your company, how your product contributes to a mission that's greater than you. I spoke for the spring manufacturers organization. Yes, the people who actually make the springs that go in your Thanksgiving turkey and pop it up. One of the manufacturers that was there actually had a part of the week that they would highlight a part that they made in the factory, and they would show exactly where it went. So they weren't making springs, they were making life-saving equipment for use in hospitals. So we just look for ways to let our employees know that they are making a difference. And there's apps for that. When it comes to, back in the day, there was 1 or 2 charitable organizations you could choose from and contribute to. Now there's tons of them, and you can find apps where, like CauseCast is one, where you can go and assign people different charities of their liking. They can build their own teams and keep track of their hours. There's lots of cool stuff out there. So in our time together, think about one thing that you're going to do as a result of that. So we talked about building, because that inspires performance. What's one thing that you can have, one conversation that you can have with your team, one act of vulnerability, letting people know that you're not perfect, but setting that foundation and building that trust? What can you do to help your employees, to help them to be better tomorrow than they are today? Because that will engage them. They will see that you care enough about them to invest in them. And now that is going to pay off, because you're also going to have a more knowledgeable and expert team working for you. What are you doing to applaud their efforts? How are you recognizing them specifically? Probably one of the best tools that you have is the Post-it note, for goodness sake. A well-placed sticky note at the right time saying, great job, or smiley face, or I appreciate you. You're giving somebody tangible evidence of a job well done. You want to navigate. What can you do to navigate that work-life integration, that work-life stress? Because what that's going to do is it's going to reduce your stress and theirs. What are you going to do to get to know your employees? I had one of my clients, and they actually put together a trivia contest based on employees submitted little-known facts about them, keeping it rated G, of course, and then they had to guess whose ideas or whose stories those were. And it really created some fun conversations in the workplace. And finally, what are you doing to serve a mission that's greater than you? How are you giving back? Because when you start to apply these concepts, these strategies over time, knowing that your company culture didn't happen overnight and it's not going to change overnight, we take baby steps. We do things little by little, one good idea by one good idea, put into practice for the long term, and that's what keeps your top talent from becoming someone else's. So if you have any questions or would like to get in touch with me, here is my contact information, and I am going to turn it back over to the lovely and talented Steve Bailey to bring it on home.
Excuse me, you caught me off guard with that one, which she is loving. Lisa, what a great webinar. Thank you so much. I'd sent a note out to a couple of our national officers who I knew couldn't make the morning meeting, and I said, if you have any opportunity between 3 and 4 to log on, you want to listen to Lisa's webinar, because you just give us information that we all need. None of it is rocket science, but it does take intention, and it takes practice, and we really appreciate it. I remember I was asked to do a seminar on employee engagement or speech, and of course, I didn't do it as well as you, but I remember in looking for some material, I found a phrase that meant a lot to me. And it was, someone had said, it's important to remember that engagement is a choice. You and I and everybody else, we create the environment, all the things you talked about, that makes an employee choose to be engaged because they feel valued, appreciated, they have that best friend at work, and the whole kit and caboodle. So you just did a great job. Sue and Robin, of course, are on the line. We have a local grocery store in Dayton, Ohio that's been written up in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. They have just a wonderful product and a wonderful culture, and all of their people, no matter whom you say thank you to, they always respond with my pleasure. And it's always, it always brings a smile to my face, but especially when I see a teenage kid take the time to look me in the eye and say my pleasure, because it means to me he or she is learning something and they're getting it. So you just hit all the right buttons today. So let's open the line for a minute. We'll ask Sue to do that. It takes a second to unmute everybody. And then we'll see if there are any questions or comments out there. Gang? Anybody want to join in? Oh, don't be shy. It's Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, my phone was muted. Hello,
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Lisa.
Yes.
You said you were in the welding industry?
Yes.
So was I. I worked for Praxair for 18 years before I finally left.
Did you really? Oh, how fun.
I did.
I was on the consumable end. I sold welding rods. Yeah.
Yep, same here. All the arky-sparky stuff, that's funny. It just struck me as that, but I thought this was very well. So you moved on to bigger, better things, and I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. No problem.
Hi, Lisa. This is Bob Noel. I have a question for you. I'm out here in California. I just finished teaching a class for Caltech that we're offering to our employees, and it's about influencing without authority. One of the key things that came out of it is understanding other people's needs, and they talked a lot about the Maslow hierarchy. I was wondering if you've referred to that. It looks like a lot of your material kind of confirms that.
Yeah, it really comes down to that very basic human connection. You know, obviously we need food and water first, but when it comes to those social connections, we're really nothing without it. And so when I first started talking about gratitude strategies, you know, back in 2009, I actually had one of my friends said, you know, nobody's ever going to pay you for that, because they didn't see any value. We grew up saying thank you. We grew up saying you're welcome. We should know better. But the thing is, we don't. We forget. We get away from it. Or we assume that people know how we feel about them, so we don't take the time to recognize. Or we're so used to, because our managers our whole career beat us up, that we just beat up our own people, because it's always about fixing what's broken instead of focusing on the good. So this program, it goes back to the very basics of human connection, and it does take us all the way up to self-actualization. Because I tell you, when you have that regular practice of gratitude, and I'm not saying that I haven't missed days or I haven't missed weeks in my gratitude journal, but it's a practice that I have been doing for 10 years now. And there's times where I feel like I have reached that level of that self-actualization, because when something bad happens, the very first response is, okay, this sucks, but what good can come out of it? What good can I find in it? And when you can get to gratitude and looking for the good as your natural response, it will take you much higher on that level.
Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed your talk here. It was a lot of fun, actually. And one of the moments that I related to what you spoke about was after our chapter nominated Rick Bailey, who is a former Executive of the Year for NMA, for a Gold Knight. He took the time, even though he's the chief engineer of the whole defense side of Boeing, he took the time to actually sit down and write a handwritten letter and mailed it to me, and I received it. And I just couldn't believe that somebody that important would take the time to write down his thoughts and thanking me.
Yep. And
I'll
and
never
the thing
forget
is, and how long ago did that happen?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago. Listen to, for everybody else on this line, listen to what he just said. It was a moment, it was a note received 4 or 5 years ago, and you still got that little dopamine rush when you talked about it, because it was a connection, it was a moment, and we never ever want to take those moments for granted. That's such a beautiful example of exactly what I'm talking about.
Thank you for your talk today.
You're welcome.
Lisa, this is Steve, and something just crossed my computer. If this isn't divinely inspired today, I don't know what is. Today on the Wall Street Journal or WSJ.com, there is an article. The title is "Why Perks No Longer Cut It for Workers." And I'm like, well, God, I can't wait to read this. But I cut the tagline. The tagline reads, "The most successful companies give employees a sense of belonging."
Yep. Because, well, and when you look at what happened over the last couple of years, you know, you have like Google and Amazon and foosball tables and free snacks and, you know, all this stuff. And companies are saying, well, I don't have that kind of money. I don't have Google's wallet. How can I do this? You don't need it. You know, you can give your employees stuff, but that's not what keeps them. It's the connection that keeps them. So that sense of belonging, that sounds like
All right, we've got, well, we're kind of over time, but everybody's still online, which is a good sign. Let me just ask if anybody else would like to make a comment or ask Lisa a question before we close. Anyone? All right, well, we've certainly had a fun-filled and information-filled hour.